Hello, I'm Kelly Clement, documentary programmer for the 2021 Mill Valley Film Festival. And I want to start out by thanking all our supporters, and especially thank you for turning out for the festival in this very unusual year we find ourselves in. And we're very honored to have our first guest here. I'd like to introduce Antonio Mendez Esparza, who's the director of Courtroom 3H. This is very exciting to be screening your wonderful film at the Mill Valley Film Festival. Courtroom 3H had its premiere at San Sebastian International Film Festival, where it was nominated for Best Documentary Award. And it is also screened at the Tokyo International Film Festival. And I'm sure it's going to be invited to screen at many film festivals around the country. So, Antonio, the films you've previously made have all seemed to focus on social inequality and our fractured justice system. This is your third feature, but your first ever documentary. So why did you choose to do an observational fly-on-the-wall film along the lines of Frederick Weissman?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, I'm so honored to be part of Mill Valley this year. I was there before with my previous two films, so it's always wonderful. So thank you for inviting the movie and inviting me to this chat. And it's why I decided to make a documentary. It's in a way the film is a response for me to Life and Nothing More. Life and Nothing More took place in Tallahassee, where I live, where I teach. I was a fiction film that told the story of a family that at some point or during the movie dealt with the justice system. That was a bit in the background of the film, although at some point in the movie it becomes a major, let's say, plot point. There is the pressure of the legal system that I guess keeps boiling in the background, and at some point it comes to the foreground of the film and kind of defines the lives of characters in that film. But in a way, I thought that the court system, as in Life and Nothing More, I only focused in one family. I thought the court system, of course, tackles a huge array of different issues. In Life and Nothing More, I could only show one. But because I spent time in the court, I saw there was, many different problems. And also I found this court, which is called dependency court, which is basically a court that has an intent, as the statute says, to reunify the family. So it's not as punishing by statute as some of the other courts in the United States. It's a kind of move towards a sort of healing process with, it can have, faults, but at least that's the intent. So I thought it was a very interesting institution. And I decided to try and make a documentary that I didn't quite know what it was gonna become, but just to answer perhaps the question as simply as I can, I thought in a way Life and Nothing More hadn't paid enough attention to the court proceedings, in a way.
So you got involved in this court system through your research for your Life and Nothing More.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And instead of just kind of skimming the surface, you got deeply involved in the court system. And it's a rather unique court system, isn't it? There's not many in the United States like this one.
Correct. Of course, I'm in a way a regional filmmaker. So it's I'm not sure how it works, but I know it's of course in the States, the United States, the states have quite a level of independence and even in how they run their courts and what they think is important. So it's I believe it's quite a Florida institution, this dependency court, and as I said, I was very touched, and I spent a lot of time, and I was very hesitant in a way to make the movie because, of course, there are things that you see, that you witness. You're quite unsure. No, families are very exposed, very vulnerable. On the other side, it's an institution that exists, and it's every day it's working. So And at least for me, it was important to see and try to understand, you know.
And how did you meet Judge Sostrom? He's not a normal judge. Tell us a little bit more about his background and how he can keep such an open mind, for one thing.
Well, I mean, I hate to speak for him, but you know, he was a lawyer for a considerable amount of time, and then he's been a judge now, even though he's relatively young. He's been a judge, I think, for 20 years. And I think he would even confess that probably the way he approached the pendency court has changed quite a bit. Perhaps at first he was, you know, less empathetic, maybe, and I think that's something that he's tried to do. I think now also in the courts there is perhaps a philosophy now about trauma and about healing, and maybe there is some advocates for a bit of a different justice system that punishes less. So I think this, in a small way, tries a bit to do it, again, with its flaws and its successes. But how I met him was through Life and Nothing More. He's the chief judge of the Second Judicial Circuit. So that's how I met him, and I think he saw Life and Nothing More. He was moved by it, and I think he had a level of trust in me. I guess, if only to tell how to say, to be honest with what I saw, to I guess to have a certain degree of objectiveness. You know, my intention was really to portray what we found. No, I didn't have, it's hard to say this when you do anything artistic, but I try to remove myself as much as possible from, you know, a subjective point of view in a way. And of course, by me not knowing enough, and, you know, not being being a filmmaker, not being part of, you know, the Department of State, or having been a lawyer, pro bono lawyer for a considerable amount of time, or even not having experienced any of these events, so I could try to sit and watch.
And did he give you the freedom right away, or did you have to convince him?
Well, this is a very, you know, interesting and point. We were protected by the Second Amendment, no, to film. I think it's the second. You know, to film. It's a public court, so that's freedom of, and of course there is a balance. But open hearings, that's open court. Anyone can see them, and of course then is the discussion: what is public, right? Is public an internet? But so that was.
And you have to get permission from the subjects.
No.
Oh.
No. It's an open forum, so it's no. But for the trials, that's actually by a statute, that's sealed. So that we had to get permission afterwards, and not only that, but we had to get a release from the court for that to be shown based on you know, it's, let's say, I'm going to misquote it in the statute, and it's a very legal term, so I'm going to say it. But yes, we had to make a case about what was, in a way, was there any benefits for this film to exist?
So you didn't have to get permission from the people you're filming. Do you think they were uncomfortable, or? I mean, I think, of course, yes. Yeah, and so how did you set up the cameras so that they weren't so invasive?
We placed it, you know, just underneath the judge. So we placed one underneath. We were like trenched. We were like entrenched. We were like in a, you know, very low, and just, you know, with the zoom lens. So we were a bit far. We were maybe, you know, 12 feet, 14 feet far, low. We were not really in their point of vision, you know. So when they, of course, they were aware we were there, but we tried to be as, but it was a camera crew. So we didn't put like GoPros. You know? There was an operator, an assistant. It was me. We tried, but yes, so it was very visible. And then we put another camera that we moved at times. That was, the idea of that one was to cover the judge mostly, but as we started filming more and more, we understood that actually lawyers and social workers were going to become important in the movie, then we started filming them a bit more.
Yeah. And what were their reactions to it? Were they open to it?
You mean
The lawyers and the social workers?
it's this is a very interesting discussion too. It's again one of the.
I've made documentaries also, so I know how touchy it can get.
Oh, it's very, look, even for me, it's uncomfortable. I answer these questions very sincerely, but the gray zone is there. It's it's absolutely there. But I think, in the participants, I understand. I think in the lawyers and social workers, if the judge is willing to be transparent, I think they have to be transparent, as they are serving a public good. So I think in that sense, accountability is a very important thing for any institution. And I think, this type of works, what they show I think one of the reasons to exist is that, and I think that's a very important one. That's a very important one. Even if you could say, well, by filming, maybe, for the time you film, they are not, they can trick you, right? They can trick you for a little bit and then you leave and things change. But I don't know, we filmed for 2 months. I think to be acting for 2 months nonstop at your work, I'm not sure that's possible, So I think we could, I'm sure by us being there, of course, maybe things changed a bit, but I think we capture quite a bit how that, or very, I would say, with detail how that courtroom operates.
Now, you say you're a teacher. You teach at
Correct.
State.
Yes, is it?
Did you use some of your students?
Yeah, I mean, I've been extremely fortunate. I've been extremely fortunate in many ways. I have a wonderful partner in Spain called Pedro, and I have a wonderful program in Florida State. They are very supportive. So yeah, I've been able to make those 2 films thanks, to both a company and an institution. And Florida State, yeah, they've been very gracious. So I work with students. In this case, Life and Nothing More, some students, quite a number. But here, most of the crew was based off students.
How did they feel about it, about the experience?
It's a very small crew, very, very small crew, very, very small. So very tiny. So I think the ones that were there a lot of times, which was basically there were 3, I thought they really enjoyed it. But in a way also, it was a bit dull, the shooting, right? Because it was like shooting on a studio every day. We left the cameras there. We had a very nice room with coffee next, it was perfect, in terms of logistics, very, very easy, very easy. So it was not, the excitement of a fiction. Now we have to move. Now we have to build this, now that. So it was a bit dull. It was a bit, and often also sometimes dead space, and shooting nonstop for the operators, shooting and filming so they can get a bit bored. So I think it was a very, a kind of a slow. It was not a movie with tension. That was also true, So there was no tension, but I think they quite enjoyed it, and I think all of them were great, but in particular the ones that stayed through the whole process, I'm very, very grateful.
Were any of them involved in the editing process?
Yeah, I've edited both of my movies I made in the States. I edited with a student of mine. A great.
So how did the editing process go for this? How did you? You shot tons of footage.
Yes.
How did you break it down? How did you make the decisions?
It was very, very strange because it was very difficult in a way because we found the footage very moving. And we had bits and pieces that were very moving, but it was hard for it to have a sort of order. So often it would happen for us that we will send a cut to the producers and they were, oh, we're bored. And we were, of course, why? So we were offended, no? So it was hard. I think the structure was quite hard to find, and also at times, we were trying to be very legal. We kind of quickly understood that we had to cut it with some structure of sorts, like either chapters or to follow a case throughout. But we have to build. For example, it wasn't like we followed 6 families during a year. No, basically how we conceived the film, we shot 2 months. Everything that happens in court. But in those 2 months, of course, you only see a family maybe twice at most, 1 or 2. So you cannot really build with that. So we had to kind of hope for glimpses of the court that were connected and actually were reaching a certain meaning. And that took time. And also for us, we didn't quite understand what was the movie in a way even. So it took a lot of time, but once we found, in a way, these chapters, which are very simple, but we were always trying to make it more complicated, I think things started to work a bit better.
And a rhythm develops.
Correct. Yeah, the rhythm was key. At some point when we were editing, the thing is, what happens though, which is interesting, is the movie we could make between the team we had. In the end, it was 1, but I'm sure any other filmmaker would make another one because the footage is it's everything, it's life, basically, it's life, So in that sense, and I think we kind of understood that at some point. We said, we don't have to find every, like in a fiction film, I think, which is what I'm used to. In a way, yes, movies can change, but you have the script, you have the guide, you can, I don't think it's the range is so, but here it can be completely different. I think once we understood that we didn't have to try everything, because we don't have time really, it would be 5 years, and we had to. So in a way, what I'm trying to say is we pick the pieces we believe were the movie we were trying to make, and then we have to maneuver them, But the structure, the whole structure was very difficult, and then to trim it to make sense. Yeah, at times it was, but it didn't take, we edited like in 4 months.
From the very beginning, you wanted it to be an observational.
Yes, that's from the way we shot, yes.
Yeah. No narration.
No.
Yeah.
No. But this is interesting, even your question. For example, we had a lot of problem trying to set up the movie, to understand what it's about from the very beginning. And that's when the quote of James Baldwin came into place, and at that point we thought about voiceover, So should the judge speak at the beginning, or should we read the statute by the judge? And given context was another thing that was important from the beginning, right?
Yeah. Now, making documentaries are always challenging. How are you able to fund your film?
Well, working with students, the school being so generous, giving me a camera, making it in where I live. So those were great. And then, of course, KJG Films with Pedro, and we partnered with another company called 9 AM Media Lab. They were able to raise funding. So in that sense, that's the puzzle.
But you do have producers.
Yes, of course.
And
yes,
were they ever trying to change things, or did they give you complete freedom?
No, in that sense, I'm very lucky. No, they gave me complete freedom. Now, at times they say we don't understand anything. But
you're very, very lucky and very brave.
Yes. No, I know. I am very aware of that. Yes. No, I'm very aware. I'm in that sense very lucky. They have lots of trust. So yeah, that was even when you are lost. Also it's a movie that in a way the footage didn't. You couldn't really. You could make many movies, but they all had to be observational. It wasn't like we had the families and we decided not to show them. So in that sense, the footage was huge range, but also very limited.
Well, big question here is, how did the pandemic impact the creation of this film?
We shot it in 2019. Mm-hmm. So then, of course, the other thing that happened was that still the courts in Florida are not open, There are many remote. So actually, all these things that you see are not happening as you see anymore. And that creates, I would imagine, even more problems for the families. Because even internet connection is many times a problem, you know? Yeah. So, and visitation, how you do it, you know, the feeling of loneliness. So I think probably the situation is even how can people, you know, communicate, like caseworkers that visit homes. So I think it must have, you know, made everything much more difficult. For us, though, it only impacted in the editing, you know, because the editor came here, but he had to leave quickly because he had to return to his home country. And then we work remotely. But because we had met here and he shot it too, he was the camera operator for, you know, the big camera for a while. And then the A camera, when the DP had to leave, he was making another movie. So he knew the footage. So we were able to work remote. But post-production mostly.
Yeah. Well, we, the viewers, have to come away with our own judgments about it. Is this one of your goals, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I understand that your own judgment, not yours, but, you know, even mine, is very is based on the surface, right? It's based on, because we don't know. We don't even know what the lawyers know. We don't know what the judge knows. We don't have access not to these files that often say what has happened. Right. And of course, it's also edited. So those two, everything of that is true. But I wanted us to just look, for me, it was about the plight of the families, you know, that, and between this system. That's what the movie is about. It's not so much, and then, you know, but yes, I wanted us to sit, and because, you know, it's interesting, by sitting there so much time, in the hearings, you have less that feeling, but in the trials, they were very intense, meaning, you know, you wouldn't know what to think often, even in cases that were very clear, you were not sure, because, you know, this adversarial system, both sides make good, you know, it's not like in the films where somebody clearly wins. No, they say, oh, no, it's very muddy, very, you know, very, yeah, it's very complicated.
Yes. So ultimately, what do you hope the audience will take away from this film?
Well, that's always such a tough question. Yeah. I hope it resonates with themselves in their own personal life in the way it may. And then, of course, also to witness some of the issues that are part of society, and how can you or me or anyone be more of a, at least be aware of them, and then for you to decide how to collaborate or not, but to be aware, no? I think at least that. Of course, in a way too, also to give voice to the families in a way, and even to the workers of the, anyway. So I think for me, it's sometimes, I guess I see film as a sort of instrument of discovery, no? And to show, it's true, I haven't really offered solutions in that sense, but at least I try to pinpoint to situations, yeah, or to issues.
So what's your next project?
It's quite different. It's a fiction film, hopefully shot in Spain, based on a novel. And I'm very excited, but very excited is silly to say, but, you know, I'm very much looking forward to it. But as always, it's all full of, you know, but yeah, it's a bit of a different film, although it's interesting, even though the material and everything tells you this is a very different movie. In a way, I'm trying to, you know, bring it to at least a little bit to some of the things I've done in the past.
Good. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the big question is, how will other people be able to see Courtroom 3H? Like people who see it at this festival, how are they going to tell their friends to see it?
Yes, well, we are still going to be touring the festival circuit for a bit, at least I think until early 2022, no? 2022, yes. And then we are hoping to secure some distributor, you know, educational distributor maybe. That's what we're trying to find. We are still hopefully something will happen, I think, in the next months.
Well, thank you, Antonio. I want to thank you so much for making this incredibly important film. And I hope that many, many people get to see it and make their own decisions.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.